Some of these
This is
technical
it.
terms
Now,
we don't know.
don't mess this line up, because this is it. This is our big part. Whatever.
Better hurry up because I'm running out of beer.
Yeah, the beer's getting low and we'll be gone.
Yep.
Okay, you were talking about the 60s. And that,
Well, when I first met Ted, I was up at Lee's Ferry measuring water for the Geological Survey. And we met Ted. He said, why don't you come on with us? And Carol and I took a trip as passengers. Then we came back and ran a boat. Next time he said, come on, run a boat, follow me.
You can do it.
And we did, although I was scared to death. But it was fun. But those days, it was remote, and we used to have flyovers. What's his name? Your friend, the airplane?
Leesburg.
Leesburg would fly over and watch us and check us.
We'd hire him to fly over toward the tail end of the trip to see that we were okay.
Drop props. Because the water was low all the way, real low. And you could get into it. Now, Crystal wasn't there to speak of at all then.
No, it was an easy rapid
dam. It was easy. And it was later that Crystal came on. And everything was running real smooth and nice. And the park took not a great interest in what was going on. I hesitate to say anything about the park and put it on tape, but they just didn't pay much interest in it. And then all of a sudden, we got into the area where they wanted to regulate us, and they wanted to take the motors off and just have rowing, and it got very controversial. And for about 7 years, we battled back and forth between Grand Canyon and Washington to get it settled to what it is today. And then when I sold out, Ted always said he'd sell out sometime when he made enough, but he hadn't made enough yet. But when I sold out,
we're still working on
it. It quieted down, and I thought it was been pretty quiet ever since, as far as quotas and things like that. But there was a long siege there fighting winter, where we were fighting each other, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but we had a lot of fun sometimes. But it was mixed up. Like we go. Can you imagine us taking all these river runner outfitters and going back to Washington and try to lobby and put on a dog and pony show and we in front of the Secretary of Interior?
And there was a senator back there that helped us a tremendous amount. Senator Sam Steiger.
Well, he
anyway,
was good.
All right, okay, cut.
He was good.
Let's go back.
Well, you probably really just in a crib.
No, now we can't be talking about that. Let's go back to the. I want to hear about what kind of guys did you look for as boatmen?
But you got to put that in, Lou, a little bit about the controversy, because a big part of this river was the controversy. Now you can't gloss over that and just say everything's been peaches and cream.
Well, we pretty well nailed that.
We nailed it.
We ran.
We went from the rape and pillage up until the nice things that are going on now, and now they're looking for things to try to get better, like. Can't drink any more beer, boys.
Well, we're not going to.
But anyway, when we looked for boatmen, we took them out. Young guys that were husky and polite and would work well on the river with passengers. They had to know how to cook. They had to have courage. They had to be able to handle emergencies. In between times, they had to be a good motor mechanic and row a boat extremely well. And when you found all those things in a guide, you had a pretty good man.
You paid him $20 a day. To start out.
And that was big money then.
Yep. But now they get $100 a day.
Yeah.
Well,
they earned
mine
it.
Did when I left. I don't know.
Some days I didn't think 20 was adequate.
But now, some people don't realize that the boatmen are pretty well paid nowadays. It used to be fun for the college boys to do. No one thought it would be serious. And now when you go out here and look at this meeting, and I see boatmen that worked for me when they were young kids, and now they're 45 and 50 years old, and they're still boatmen. They're very responsible. They're more knowledgeable about the river. The park is remiss in not getting some of those people and picking their brains, like we're talking here, and picking their brains. Some of those guys have been on the river for 20 years. There's boys right out there now, been on there for 20 years. And how long you been on? You've been on 18, 15, 18. You were 15 years old when you made the first trip.
For my first training run, I had a load of people, and you took them through. Sure.
3 years you were a swamper.
That was my first training. I took a load. It wasn't profitable if you just went down empty.
3 years.
That's how I learned. Swamper. Yeah. And guys would say, hey, how many times have you been down the canyon? And I'd say, this is my first trip. They thought it was a joke, and they'd laugh, and I'd go on, smile. But that's the way I learned, and fortunately, now we take a guy through, 10 times. to just train him. But the guides are a lot better. They're more responsible. They're more knowledgeable, and they're more polite and thoughtful when they work with the passengers. In the old days, we felt if you run the boat, that's all you needed. But try to get along with the passengers.
Can I quote you in saying that, Ted? As soon as I go up there,
I cover everything in the.
Ted says
Yeah,
it's
are
more
you getting
knowledgeable.
bored with this lock off deal? You think that's
Yeah.
bullshit?
No,
Move
it's
around?
okay.
Do you? You think it's okay?
Okay.
It's
Well,
well.
no,
You gotta.
no,
if you want to
bullshit.
know something, you gotta ask questions because
Yeah.
we're
This is good.
we leave gaps in there. We
That
don't
doesn't
tell you
matter.
about the end of the trip.
No,
We used to go
when
clear-
the guy we
No, we
pull
used
him
to
out of the bars.
We used to
Well,
go
no,
clear down to.
I want to
Temple
know
Bar.
about boatmen right now. You know,
Okay.
the whole, and the change. I guess like what we have here, my generation, we're the first guys that ever thought we could seriously do it for a living, aren't we? Or did you have guys that
No.
didn't? Did they do other things?
Ours was seasonal employment, and it
Except
basically
for Dennis and guys like it. Just
yeah,
Dennis was
we
pretty
had a
full
few
time.
people who like Shorty Burton and
Yeah.
Dennis and Smuss Allen that just ran the river.
Shorty was the one that boatman that drowned.
For the most part,
For your information and the viewers.
yes, yes, for our audience and our followers out there.
For years, it used to be spooky too when you went by there. With
Oh,
Shorty. Everybody
yes.
pointed out the little plate that they remember that they put up. They wouldn't let
Yeah.
us put up a regular plaque on the wall because of damage to the canyon. So we hung a little plate,
The-
silver plate with striped to Shorty. At Upset. Yes, that was there was about only Ted had about 3 or 4
Full time.
full-time that you could call professional boatmen because Dennis taught me how to run and was follow me and he was
Yeah.
a good boatman.
Earl Staley, you remember?
Earl, yeah, of course. Earl Dennis went
What did Dennis used to do
run a
with
boat.
you? No, but I mean, I used to hear. Tell me about how you used to. I heard stories about how Dennis would set you up. He'd take you over to the left side of Hans, and then he'd run over to the right.
Yes,
Well,
he
he
did
used to-
that to me too, if he could,
He used to do that just to see how alert you were
to see if
take-
you're watching.
But he was an excellent boatman, in my
Yes.
opinion. He was probably one of the best boatmen that was
Very good.
ever on Grand Canyon. Of course, he committed suicide later on, but I guess he's too bad he isn't here these days.
His
now.
camp routine needed a little polish.
Yeah.
Why,
He
why,
did-
do you
was
think
good.
why do you think he did himself in?
Oh, I don't know. He was just frustrated with life,
Depressed.
depressed. He didn't have the polish with the passengers that in later years boatmen like you did. Boatmen like you and some of your peers. Now, don't shake your head and say no because you can't talk about the river without talking about you and some of the guys your age that were on. You learned, right? You learned slowly, and you liked the people, and they liked you.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about all these guys, Jeff. The ones that I know. Now, I look out there now, and I don't know a lot of people.
In Dennis's case, he was an excellent boatman, and he was a person that had a lot of courage. When it really got tough going, you could depend on him, and that was an unusual thing.
He was very athletic. That's
Yeah,
a good
physically
thing.
athletic.
Physically athletic.
Wrestled, got second or third in the state championships, and he was a good man. It was too bad that we couldn't have talked to him before he committed suicide because we might have been able to help him.
I think different companies had different standards. I think maybe this is what Lou is alluding to. I mean, some companies, in our opinion, and we won't name, they remain nameless. I mean, some companies' standards of teaching and what they did were different than other companies. And,
I'll tell you what I'm after. Actually, is I want to document, just what happened in the '60s and just kind of how the business went. Which is what you guys are.
well,
Really, it went pretty well.
Well, as far as running the trips, they went well.
Yeah.
But we all started. One thing about this, in my opinion, I've always thought, having been my age, running the Grand Canyon is one of the last things that was comparable to the Old West. You may laugh about it, but one of the last, like the fur trappers, the cowboys, the explorers that went west, that did things on their own, improvised, set it up. The river was that way. A few pioneers started, like Ted's dad, people like that. The rest of us picked it up. And that's why it was so free. You felt as soon as you passed under the bridge, you were free, you were total, you were
Unrestricted.
unrestricted, your own person. You had to live by your wits, and we didn't have helicopter help in as much and things like that. I mean,
we didn't have a lot of regulation.
Didn't have a lot of regulation.
The best freedom in the world, and I miss that too.
You could build fires, you big bonfires. You could stand around. People would enjoy it because they could look in the fire. They could dream. They think. Of course, then we found out that the driftwood was being burnt, and the little lizards didn't have any place to go to cool off their little feet. So then we had to quit
Change
using
that.
the wood.
Yeah.
And they have a hard time cooling their little feet on a butane stove. But that's beside the point. But the first times you have to think about it, we designed our boats, we improvised, we built them, we improved them. We were always, every company, we weren't jealous to the point of each other that we wouldn't help each other. Boatmen worked back and forth for each company,
Yes.
different companies. With rare exceptions, there wasn't any conflict.
What about the passengers? Do you think what were they like in the beginning? And do you think they've changed?
In the beginning, the passengers that went down the canyon were probably a little different breed. And one of the biggest ones that Ted had on trips that I ran were Sierra Clubbers.
Yeah.
That was almost, I'd say 75% wasn't it?
No, not that.
60.
40.
40.
But they started the
Depends on who's
kind of exploring the rivers to find a new pristine area. So they'd take hikes into high country, and they'd take trips to Africa and different places, and they started doing these river runs because we were pioneering it.
Of course, they had the first settler syndrome.
I guess they want to be the first
Yeah,
ones.
once they had done it, then they said, now we're going to change it.
Lock it up.
Huh?
Maybe even
Well,
lock it up.
yeah, lock it up. I mean, that was where we ran into exactly where. Now I hope you. I don't. Ted's still in business, so I have to be careful what I say. I don't want to bother his present business. Now I'm out, so I don't care. But the bad thing that caused us the most trouble was that some of the people did that. They went down these big trips of 125 people, and they went down. They got a cutback, a kickback on the number of people went down. But once those trips were too big, we knew they were too big, but that's where they wanted to go. Then, once they'd done it, the same ones said, wait a minute, we can't let everybody go down that canyon like this. There will be too many people down there. We can't have mobs of people going on the beach. And suddenly we were having to defend ourselves. And really, we didn't want to take more than 30 people.
But they cut back.
Yeah, they cut back, but it was the first settler syndrome. I've been there. Now let's close the thing off.
Well, and what do you think they're like now? How do you think?
They don't. I don't take them on my trips now, but the
People-
earlier people that went on the river, a lot of them were hardy individuals that wanted to explore, and if you had bad weather or had a cut boat, that was part of the trip. They understood. You didn't have near the problems. Nowadays they want ice for their drinks. They want a generator to charge the batteries on their cameras.
Only to make
we're a lot more.
margaritas.
Yeah, to
Margaritas.
run a blender and make drinks. In a way, they're more. They expect more service now, and they're not as hardy. The early people that went understood when it was rainy and cold that we still had to go on downriver, and they did. And we didn't have the equipment then to treat them as comfortably, but they were, in my opinion, the best you could find.
The early people.
I liked them.
The early people.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think it's just our society has changed. It became the chic thing to do to a certain
Sure.
point. And if you haven't been down the Grand Canyon, and you go to a cocktail party, everybody's talking about the Grand Canyon, you hadn't been there, you were out of step. So a lot of people went down that should never have gone on the canyon. If there was some way you could screen them before they ever started, I mean, I think that would be nice, because there's people that just, as a matter of fact, the Arizona Republic had a reporter go down there that just came back and just knocked the heck out of the trip.
Didn't
Come
like
on
the trip.
in.
That's unusual.
Clientele is because our whole society's changed. Another thing that I think that's changed it, and in my opinion, we didn't have the ordinary person going on cruise trips like we have now. And so now they've gone on a cruise liner, and when you get off the cruise liner and you get on the Grand Canyon, they expect, like Ted says, they expect the same thing. Ice for their drink, ice cream, margaritas, things like that are difficult to do, and it takes away from the canyon. The canyon is so great in itself. To see the canyon, it has done so many things for so many people. As the young people used to say, you get your doo-doo together to go down there, and I've known this, I've watched them, you sit on a rock, you look at the canyon, it's so majestic and so big that it straightens out your mind. You go down there, if a person's going to marry somebody, you go down the canyon with them and find out what a jerk the guy was, and you've saved yourself a lifetime of trouble, and you get rid of him because he's ahead of the line when it comes time to eat. He elbows the old people out of the way to get on the boat. You don't want to marry somebody like that. Get rid of it. The canyon does all things for all people. Teenagers love to go down there with their folks. They say, I've heard them say, Ted has too, that Dad was never like this. Look at Dad jumping in the water, yelling,
playing with us.
Playing with us. And it's great. The family is together. The whole family's together for 8 days. And this is the canyon. This is what it is. And I don't think they want to change it. And I don't think the park wants to get to the point where they restrict it to the extent to where it is just a Disneyland thing. It is not a Disneyland thing. You have to remember all the time there's an element of danger, there's an element of chance of what might happen and things like that down there that makes it exciting, along with being a great place for the human mind. And that sounds like a kind of a
It's a good travel
lecture.
nice
Commercial. That's what we want.